Hey y'all, welcome to my channel. My name is Uche and today we are going to be talking Bitcoin. Whew, I'm nervous, but that's okay because I'm also very excited to get into this topic. So let's go. Listen. I'm not an expert of Bitcoin at all, but I've been investing in it since 2017. Back then I just graduated college, so got my first job in my career and I was looking for ways to grow my savings and invest in things that could potentially be world changing. So when I first heard about Bitcoin, I didn't really understand it, but I thought that the concept of it was very interesting. So I went ahead and started investing in it. Because I was so broke, broke. I started to buy just small dollars amount, about $20 to $50 a month. Back then, it was worth about 10K. So even though I wasn't putting a lot in, now it's worth almost 40K. So she's done all right. The accounts are looking right.
You got money. He got money. Get it all for him.
I'm just kidding. I'm not a millionaire or anything, but considering the little amount that I put in, the returns have been amazing. And recently, with the pandemonium of last year that never wants to end and everything that came with it, like the worsening inflation, all the money printing, I thought more people would be encouraged to buy into Bitcoin. But when I talk to people around me, I just noticed a lot of fear and misconceptions about Bitcoin that kept them from investing in it, even though Bitcoin was made for the people, by the people. I know that's cheesy, but it's really true. And the ones that were investing were doing it just out of FOMO or thinking that they're going to get rich quick, which is so not the case and not what Bitcoin was created for. But I understand the fear and speculation surrounding Bitcoin. There is a serious lack of financial education in this country, and it's really holding us back as a people. It's putting us in a position to be taken advantage of by a system that no longer works for us. Really, it's never worked for some, but it's definitely stopped working for the few that it was working for. They just don't know it yet. And for the people at the top who benefit from keeping the status quo going, that fear and lack of knowledge makes it easy for them to tell us common folks,
oh, don't invest in that. Don't try to make your money work for you. It's a Ponzi scheme. They just want your money. It's going to fail.
They tell us all these things while they continue to get more money and more power off our backs. Oh my God, you guys. My mic was off for the entire time I was filming this part of my makeup. Tragic. And this is not the first time I've done this. Now I have to re-record everything I just recorded, but it's okay. We move anyway. And it doesn't help that the Bitcoin space is complicated AF. Like seriously, complicated. For the first year of me investing in Bitcoin, I didn't understand what the hell it was or what was going on. So I was investing my little extra change and I started learning about it as I went along. So just a little background about me. I am not in the tech industry at all. I'm a respiratory therapist. I work in healthcare. I do have a bachelor's degree, but I feel like I'm a pretty average intelligence. And I say all that to say that if someone like me with my background and where I came from can understand Bitcoin, I feel like anybody can understand Bitcoin. And I feel like I'm in a position to be able to explain it to the average person that's not in tech, that doesn't understand all the technical aspects, that probably doesn't even know how to invest. Because when I started, I didn't know anything about investing. Bitcoin was the first thing I ever actively invested in. So that's why I wanted to start this channel, in order to talk Bitcoin to the average person and we can learn from each other. And with that knowledge, we can take measures to protect ourselves and our future by becoming better, more informed investors. Now, first step to understanding Bitcoin is understanding the underlying principle behind Bitcoin. Why was Bitcoin created? It was created to give people a means to transact with each other directly without government intervention, nor the ability for governments to dictate the money supply. To me, Bitcoin's all about freedom from government control. With the US dollar, Federal Reserve is the agency that creates the dollars and gives it to the banks. Now, a dollar or money isn't really worth much. It's literally just a piece of paper. I can take a sheet of paper and call it money and use it to buy something from you, as long as you think my sheet of paper is worth whatever I'm wanting to buy from you. The sheet of paper is worth what people believe it's worth. And depending on how much people need it and how scarce it is, its value can go up or it can go down, just like the US dollar. For example, back in 2019, if you wanted to exchange your dollar for a euro, $1 could get you 0.89 euros. Now fast forward to 2020, and if you want to exchange that same $1 for a euro, that $1 can only get you 0.81 euros. You got less euros with the same name $1 because the value of the US dollar went down. And this is caused by inflation. Just a little bit of a history lesson. Back in the day, or any of our time, the value of the US dollar was high because it was backed by gold. Basically, $1 equaled one piece of gold. So if the Federal Reserve wanted to print 100 $1 bills, they had to have 100 pieces of gold in their reserve. If they wanted to print more dollars, they had to find a way to acquire more gold, either through mining the gold or buying it from people or other governments, because they had to have more gold in order to print more money. They couldn't just print more money out of thin air. So the supply of dollars out in the world was always capped to however much gold the government had. This kept governments honest and limited the amount of dollars that was out in the world. And whenever you limit the supply of anything, any assets, as more people want it, the higher the value of that asset goes. That's why companies like Burberry would literally rather burn any extra purses that they haven't sold than give it to us at a discount, even though we deserve it. They don't want too many of their purses out in the market, because if any of us common folk could just buy it, then it would lose value. And surely we can't have that. It's basic supply and demand. However, under everyone's favorite presidents, old Watergate Nixon, the US finally abandoned the gold standard. And now the governments can make it rain dollars all day if they wanted. And they wanted, and they did. I don't know why they listened to that guy. So they kept printing money that wasn't backed by anything, and the debt calculator just kept going higher and higher. Fast forward to the early 2000s. The US government removed some restrictions on banks and allowed them to engage in the practice of selling homeowners' mortgages to investors. Without getting too technical, these investors and banks were basically allowed to make money off of the interest that homeowners owed to the banks. So the more people owed the banks money, the more the investors were getting rich and singing where the money resides.
Where the money reside, where the money reside, where the money reside.
This worked fine when people were purchasing houses that they could actually afford. But if the banks wanted to make more money, they had to essentially create more people that could be in debt to them. So they lowered their standards for getting a mortgage to where even if you had no job, no saving, bad credit, and no down payment, you could still take out a loan for a house that's worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. And they were able to do this under the guise that they were helping the little people attain the American dream. Sure, that's why they engaged in all these predatory lending practices and would intentionally get financially illiterate homeowners to sign for these adjustable rate mortgages instead of fixed rate mortgages. So with these adjustable rate mortgages, the homeowners could afford to pay their mortgage every month at first, but as the interest rate adjusted and would sometimes get higher, the mortgage would just balloon into this huge price that they weren't able to afford anymore. And the banks just engaged in a bunch of shady practices legally. Now, a lot of people were trying to buy homes.
The market was 2021 high.
So again, supply and demand. If only one house is available on the market, but there are 10 people that are looking for a house, the price of that house skyrockets all the way up because now more people are willing to pay more and compete in order to buy this house. I know, I'm looking so crazy right now. You guys, I'm not a makeup artist, so don't judge me if this doesn't come out looking good because I'm not a makeup artist. Don't judge me. Don't judge me. And when the people who got more house than they could afford defaulted or on the loans and couldn't afford them anymore, the bank would happily foreclose on the loan and not take a loss because, again, the market was hot. Tons of people were trying to buy homes. So they took the homes from the people who couldn't afford the homes anymore and would sell the loan at a higher price than they originally loaned it out for. The banks would foreclose on the home and not take a loss because they would sell the house to the next person at a higher price since the market was so hot. And the people who defaulted or couldn't pay for their home were thanked for their business and kicked out into the streets. While the market was hot, this worked out great for the banks. However, in 2007, when demand for homes slowed down, the banks and financial institutions were stuck with all this debt that they couldn't sell off. So they started to go bankrupt one by one. Oh! Okay, this is not gonna work. I gotta do this off camera. But you know what? The government handled it in the best way possible. They told those banks,
Hey banks, you made your bed, now you have to lay in it.
and instead they gave financial assistance to all the American people that were negatively affected by this whole situation, and the people lived happily ever. Oh man, I couldn't even finish that sentence. The American government handled it in the worst possible way. They bailed these banks out by printing hundreds of billions of dollars, which caused the stock market to crash and resulted in the worst financial crisis the US has had since the 1930s. And who suffered? as a result of this? Was it the banks? Was it the politicians? Oh no, they got rich off of this. It was the millions of Americans who lost their jobs, the small businesses that were forced to close down, and the millions of retirees whose retirement funds just totally plummeted almost overnight. And this is just one example of people suffering because of their government's excesses. And it was a huge deal because it happened in the US, but smaller countries go through this all of the time. Take Venezuela, for example. Venezuela was one of the richest countries in South America because of the amount of oil that they produce. Long story short, while oil prices were high, the economy of Venezuela was doing great. So they decided to implement a bunch of social programs that cost a ton of money. Whether they were trying to do right by their people or not, doesn't matter. The rules of economics still apply. They spent more money than their government had in the bank, and eventually they had to file for bankruptcy in 2019. Their currency was so overinflated that people had to weigh their bills. It cost so much to pay just for basic necessities that people couldn't just count the dollars. They had to weigh the dollars. That's how little their currency was worth. That year, the average Venezuelan lost 19 pounds because food was so scarce. These people were literally eating garbage. That's how horrible it was. And where were the rich Venezuelans so that the Venezuelan government could tax them and make them pay their fair share? The rich were like, psh, I'm out here. Now, the rich were good. They either fled the country or kept their money in offshore accounts, but the poor and the working class suffered. You want to talk about inequality and a large wealth gap? Nothing increases the wealth gap more than overinflation or hyperinflation in the example of Zimbabwe. Hyperinflation in Zimbabwe was so bad that at one point, if you had 70 US dollars, you could get 100 trillion Zimbabwean money. I'm looking at my bank account like, shoot, I'm a trillionaire in Zimbabwe. Like, y'all can't tell me nothing, okay? Greece also went through a similar situation, and all of these examples are very recent, like within the last 15 years. Question for me, and the question I hope y'all are asking, is how come all of these countries, starkly different cultures and way of doing things, how do they all end up in the same situation? And this, my friends, is because government is run by human beings, and human beings suck. Trust me, I'm a human being. I know my people. So it doesn't matter why these financial collapses happened, whether it was a mistake or incompetence or greed, the end results are always the same. Whenever a government is having problems, their answer is always to print more money. And at the end of the day, it was the middle and the working class, especially the bottom 40%, that suffered. Those people who can't afford to leave the country and don't have their money in other assets that are outside of the scope of the government. Those are the people who are affected the most and are the hardest hit by inflation. And this lack of trust in the US government after the 2008 crash is what prompted Satoshi Nakamoto to create Bitcoin. Satoshi was done and finished, y'all. They said, I ain't got no more talking to the government. Period. So now we get to Bitcoin. Bitcoin was created by a person or persons that call themselves Satoshi Nakamoto. The main idea behind Bitcoin was for it to be a peer-to-peer version of electronic cash that would allow online payments to be sent directly from one party to another without going through a financial institution. When it comes to Bitcoin, honestly, I don't think you have to know like the technical aspects of it. You don't need to know exactly how it works. Just like when you're driving a car, you don't know exactly how your car works. You just need to know that it does work when you need it to, and that you need to put gas in it, and you need to take it for an oil change. Just like that, when it comes to Bitcoin, the three things that I think are the most important things to know is, number one, it is a digital currency. So you're not physically holding a coin or a dollar bill. Just like when you use your debit card, your money is in an account somewhere and you're able to swipe and you trust that the money is leaving your account to go to wherever it needs to. And number two, Bitcoin is what is considered decentralized, which means it isn't controlled by any government, any bank, or any single entity. This is something that's different from most of the cryptocurrency, if not all the cryptocurrency that's out there. No one controls it, not even Satoshi Nakamoto. No one knows who Satoshi Nakamoto is. The program is set. Essentially, using Bitcoin would be like using Venmo to send money to your friend, but you wouldn't be using it through your bank and you wouldn't be using your country's currency. I would be sending Bitcoin from my address directly to my friend's Bitcoin address. In future videos, we'll talk more about that process and how it goes. But for now, basically you're just sending money digitally to your friend without having to go through your bank. And because it's a digital currency that is created and maintained through a computer program, it's free from the sucky nature of human governments. And it's considered inflation proof. And this brings me to the third important thing that I think everyone needs to know about Bitcoin. The best part about Bitcoin is that there is only ever going to be 21 million Bitcoin out in the market. No more than that. And that is embedded in the program and will never change. Not even by Satoshi Nakamoto. The fact that there's a maximum amount of Bitcoin that can ever exist in the world means that once they're all mined, the value of your Bitcoin will only go up the more people buy into it. Technically, there is a scenario where enough people that are holding Bitcoin just decide to all of a sudden sell. That could technically drive down the value of Bitcoin. But listen, have you met any of these Bitcoin loyalists? They're more loyal than the beehive. They'll cut your head off if you say anything negative about Bitcoin. Did you see what they did to Elon on Twitter? Someone's gonna have to pry those Bitcoins from their cold, dead hands because they ain't never gonna sell. And I know for me, I'm never gonna sell. So I don't see that happening to where Bitcoin would just be worth zero or much less than it's worth now. But hey, anything can happen. And that's always the risk. It's the same risk as investing in any stock. It's just that this technology is new to the masses, so the prices are going up and down a lot more drastically than other stocks. But once upon a time, the internet was a new thing to the masses, and there were people who didn't believe in it, and yet here we are. Can't do anything without it. So keeping in mind the level of risk, I feel like that's why people should be diversified and not put all their eggs into any one basket, because that is not smart investing. That is greed, and you will lose every time. But I'll talk about investing strategies when it comes to Bitcoin in another video. I got you, girl. So if you feel like 2008 was the worst financial crisis that the US will ever be in, or that your first world country will never be like a Venezuela or a Zimbabwe, then clearly you have not been paying attention to the state of the world since the panorama of last year. Almost 20% of all existing dollars in the United States were printed just last year. Housing prices are sky high. Car and truck rental prices are increased. Basic food items, clothing is increased. For the people who are doubting that inflation is real and we are seeing it. And my company isn't increasing my pay. Wages are stagnant. I'm getting paid the same amount as I was last year or the year before. Our dollars are not going as far as they should be. And I always think, like, if these prices are affecting me, how much more are they affecting people and families that aren't in as good a financial situation as I am? The scary part is that I don't believe that we're seeing the full effects of inflation, because the government right now is still doing things to artificially boost the economy and keep this sinking boat afloat. But baby, this is not sustainable. It's all going to come crashing down eventually, and we're the ones that are going to suffer. None of us are safe. At the end of the day, when the economy comes crashing down and goes left, middle and working class are the ones that are going to suffer. It's not going to be Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk or any of these ultra wealthy people. Our politicians keep saying they're going to tax, but they're not actually ever going to tax them. It's going to be us. And for me, I feel like Bitcoin is the only alternative way to get our money out of the control of the government that caused this train wreck. Unless we want to be the ones left holding the bag. And that is it for this video. Whew, that was hard. Shit. But it was so much fun. I love this, and I think I'm gonna really enjoy this YouTube journey. And if you're still here, thank you for watching this video. Thank you for taking a chance on me. I hope you learned something new today. I want to create more videos about Bitcoin. I love Bitcoin. I'm passionate about it, and I really feel like it's going to change the world. Like, in the next 20 years, Bitcoin and the technology that runs it is going to be so big. So I hope that this video is able to reach groups of people that aren't normally into investing or even know about it. I hope that this video inspired you to take a look into Bitcoin and just see, like, if this could be something for you, if this could be a way for you to diversify your portfolio. The great thing about Bitcoin is it's not all or nothing. You can start with a little bit at a time, but the important thing is to start, because none of us want to be left behind if this is the next big thing. And if this is the next big thing, and I believe that this is the next big thing, then the time to get into it is now. And on that note, thank you again for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe. Let me know your thoughts. If you have any questions about Bitcoin, I'll answer to the best of my abilities. I hope you have a great day. You stay blessed, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye. Mwah.